All right, let's go.
That's where we thought how
So are we live?
are we checking levels?
Yeah,
We're
let's
gonna
do
do
it.
a level check.
No.
Testing?
One. No, we're gonna
You need to get right up on these mics, or
turn that so
sit
that
back.
you're in the. All right, so then we're gonna rock. Do you want to do the little phone?
Go. I don't. Can't do it. Not
All
a
right,
viable
cool.
product.
All right, so
We're gonna bang the gong though.
So I'm just gonna say 3, 2, then I'll do one sound. Are you ready? 3, 2.
Oh, restart. We gotta hook our clips up, dude. We gotta come
we
with that
got a lab up.
Yeah.
This is gonna be tricky because this thing is not overly lengthy.
Yeah. We're all right.
I don't know. Okay. We'll
Grab
see what
this.
that did. We'll
Go.
have to do some editing on this. All right.
You ready?
3, 2.
Well done. Well done.
Welcome to the Pinnacle podcast. Hashtag the Gong Show.
Yes, Friday.
Friday fun.
We're gonna be having a barbecue today out on the patio. It's spring.
It is spring. It is spring. Thank God. Don't look at the
Technically.
snow, but it's spring.
Yes, and it feels good outside. And we are super excited today to welcome Rich Strobel to the podcast.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Oh, live
Just
studio audience.
look at that.
Here. Yeah.
A lot of people have been
clapping.
asking
That's huge.
to talk to some experts that we work with, and Rich is quite an amazing guy. I'll just do a quick intro and then let you talk a little bit about what you do and kind of unpack a little bit.
Sure.
But a funny story about Rich actually.
Oh, if we're gonna do funny stories, this could get interesting.
True. The first time I ever met Rich, I think it was at Morehead State.
Okay.
And we go way back
My alma mater.
to Southwestern.
Yeah,
you went to
This
Morehead.
is
for a
like
couple
this is
years
like
down the line.
99,
1999.
2000, right around there. First time we ever met, we were at a recruiting meeting, and you kind of sat next to me. You did sit next to me, not just kind of. And I think you rubbed me the wrong way for some reason because I might have
This is a
been
guy.
a year or two older.
No, I didn't even have the beard then.
Oh, God. Well,
You're the typical frat boy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no doubt.
Absolutely.
I was like, look at this guy coming in, all cocky, but
I felt threatened.
I know.
That was the
I felt
problem.
I know.
you know what it was?
It's still exuding a little bit.
That is right. It was basically like two alpha males,
Yeah.
two rams battering, their
Sizing
heads,
each other up.
No doubt,
Door in their head.
But now, Rich, he is you're an integrator.
Yeah.
We're talking about the visionary integrator, which is the traction model, and I'm definitely the visionary. But excited to learn a little bit about that. You're also with the sales team builder. You're with the Bedore Business Group, as well as your consulting company, R Factor. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So let's just dive right into it because everybody talks about family, and we will get into like family, your story, and stuff like that a little bit. But what is the one thing?
The one thing. That's tricky. I mean, I think faith would probably be at the top, though.
Oh, no doubt.
I love it.
So let me paint this for you. One of the things that I love to do is travel internationally to like funky places and get the guys that I travel with. Some would say don't book the safest route always. We tend to go with a little more.
Seek the adventure.
Yeah, we really look for the authentic experience.
Sure, I love it.
No doubt.
So when we were in Africa, we did a bunch of amazing stuff. But when we came to the part of our safari across the Serengeti and into the Ngorongoro crater, we didn't go with one of the Western-owned safari tour companies.
Sure.
We went with a local guy who was in the process of kind of building his own tourism business.
First day.
Not quite first day, but we wanted the authentic experience, right? He was, I think he was a chief of a Tutuga tribe, which is one of the indigenous tribes in Tanzania, and it was funky, man. We were up in Uganda before we flew across Lake Victoria, so we landed in Mwanza that morning, right? And Corey, one of our buddies, got kind of singled out coming through customs and basically had to bribe his way out of that. So this is how the morning's starting, right? Had to bribe his way out of that, which is a thing.
That's crazy.
It's something, right? Because he had not, something about his medical vaccination paperwork, like he hadn't signed one of the forms, like you're supposed to have it all signed.
Cool. And they're like, well, we'll get some money out of this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get there and we had to pay our balance on arrival, right? We had paid deposits and we had to pay the balance for this tour package. It was a sizable amount of money because there's, 9 of us. And so we give this guy money. He's like, oh, we got to take this to the bank. We're not driving through the Serengeti with this much cash. We're like, okay. So he leaves, and they set us up at this little restaurant, right by Lake Victoria. It's very beautiful, and we're having some food, and having a beer or two. It's early, but we're having a beer or two. And this dude's gone for like hours.
This is your buddy?
No, this is the random.
Oh, okay,
This
okay,
gave a bunch
okay.
of money to, right?
Yeah, this is the tour guide.
No.
So we're looking at each other like,
He just took all our money.
we're like, dude, that was a lot of cash,
That would be a good story.
right? And so they come back, they ran into some issues of some sort.
Okay.
And what's important to the story is that part of that culture is this kind of machismo where if things don't go well, they're not really transparent about what's not going well.
Sure. They're like, oh, it's cool. I got it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, oh,
got it. Yeah, and the running joke for us is 20 was the time frame for everything. If you ask how long something's going to be, how far it's going to be, it's 20.
Okay.
20 what we don't know. We never figured that out, but
Could
20.
be 20 hours or 20 minutes.
Who knows? So anyways, this trek into our first camp in the Serengeti is about, I've looked it up online, it's probably about a 5-hour drive, right? Because you don't really go fast in these safari trucks.
Sure.
The roads are kind of general recommendations more than like paved and, really established. So we're maybe an hour in and we blow a tire.
Jeez.
So we're fixing that, right? And that takes forever. And then we're driving and driving and driving. And it's like 8 hours.
Oh,
9 hours, right? And we're looking at each other like, man,
In the middle of nowhere?
Oh,
Or on
this
a
is
highway,
this
or
is
what?
no. This is like remote roads
Yeah,
in the
it's
mountains.
a desert, like,
Yeah,
Something goes bad. It's just
You
Into
see
the
like
Serengeti.
lions and stuff as you were
not
going?
yet.
Okay.
But there's some wildlife around, and we're like, man, what is going
too
on?
long, right?
What is going on? We're like, hey, how much longer? How much
20.
longer? 20. And we're like, dude, 20 is getting old, right? And then it's now getting dark.
Were you stopping at like the local gas stations to get a Snickers bar? And
Yeah, that doesn't
No.
exist in tiny remote villages in the mountains of the Serengeti. And so that's the other thing. Like we haven't eaten. Like we've pretty much cashed a lot of our, kind bars and our X bars and everything else that we had packed along, right? And it's getting late. It's dark, and we pull into this tiny, mountain village town, and it's super dark out. We're kind of driving around this town, which we're not supposed to be in a town. Driving around this town, we pull off in this like little neighborhood. And again, they're not telling us what's going on. We see guys kind of running around in the periphery, right? One guy comes running up, they talk a little bit in Swahili, and then he takes off sprinting. And we start getting nervous.
weird.
Because there's 9 of us in 2 of these trucks. We got a lot of gear, a lot of equipment, you know what I mean? We felt very vulnerable.
We're going to set up to get robbed, obviously.
Right.
You're up to some-
Then they take us back over to what you could call the main streetish part of this tiny village, right? And I just remember it's super dark. There's no electricity at night. They turn it off at night, but people have generators. And their nightclub is probably like the size of this room with like a really blown out like little PA that's super distorted, bumping some music, And there's people kind of milling around, and we just felt so vulnerable.
Did you go to the nightclub?
Right. No, we were not getting out of the truck, right?
Exactly.
And so I distinctly remember my buddy Callan looking at me going, this is every one of our mother's worst nightmares
Yeah, exactly.
right now. And the reality was, when we blew that tire, we had popped a hole in the gas tank, whatever we hit. So we'd been leaking gas the entire day and run out of gas. The reason they were in that town is they were trying to find the owner of the gas station to get the keys to open it up and get some gas so that we could get to where we were going. And that's actually what happened. About 20 later, this guy comes running up to our truck, lugging these huge gas cans, fills up our truck, and then we get on our way. We finally got to the safari camp at like midnight. And the reason I bring that story up is that it's really easy when we're confronted with challenges to feel like the whole world is like conspiring against us.
Yeah.
When in reality, like we felt like we were being set up, right? Yeah. In reality, the world was conspiring for us. They had a bunch of people moving, they just didn't tell us what was going on, right? They had a bunch of people working really hard to try and help our situation.
Sure.
And so whenever we're confronted with challenges, it's really easy to sit back and go, man, the whole world's conspiring against me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can, and that's about perspective, and like you say, faith.
Yeah.
And how you reacted, had you were able to stay lighthearted, you were able to...
Yeah, it was getting sketchy.
Were you thinking you're like, we're gonna die? You were panicking?
It wasn't quite panic mode, because again, like we've traveled to a lot of places, and we intentionally don't do the most touristy type stuff. We try to do get authentic, fringy experiences, right? But when you got these kind of battle-hardened travelers starting to get nervous, and I've probably traveled the least out of that group, that's when, whenever I see the calm person starting to get agitated, like when my wife was delivering our second child, when our doctor raised her voice, that's when I started to panic a little bit.
It's like the stewardess on the airplane, when you see her panic in her face.
Yeah.
Then it's time to panic, right?
Yeah. On that same trip, one of the things we did was raft the Nile River. We went whitewater rafting on the Nile up in Uganda. It was crazy, and that was intense. Like
aren't there anacondas and stuff in there?
There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, crocodiles.
Oh man.
I mean, it's not like that, but there's dangers, imminent dangers around. And the one time that I saw our guide start freaking out, that's when I was like, oh, this is bad news. So, because that dude was super calm through the face of a lot of stuff.
That's a good story, man.
But that's why I think faith is really, really important, because that perspective of, we could look at this and get super freaked out and, really question what's going on, or we could put our faith where it belongs, right? And I'm a Christian. I definitely believe in God and try to put my faith in Him as much as I can. I'm not great at it all the time. But man, when we are able to operate and step out in faith, it's amazing.
Preach. I love it.
Step out in faith, like you say, it's amazing because of the results that you get 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And if it's not immediate gratification, it's often, like you said, you find out later that all these people were actually working for you, and it may not hit you right at that moment that you're going through it, that this faith is actually in action for you. And like you say, you can actually begin to feel as some of that self-doubt and some of that why me type of stuff. And
the important thing to remember, though, is that faith isn't the absence of that doubt.
Exactly.
It's the persistence in the face of it, right?
Absolutely.
It's just like courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear, right?
Yeah,
so
can't
faith,
have courage without it.
Yeah, faith isn't that you don't ever question things or doubt things.
Right.
It's a huge part of faith.
Exactly.
It's the persistent belief in spite of those things.
Amen.
Appreciate it, Mr. Rich Strobel. So tell us a little bit right now about Bedore Business Group, R Factor, what you're doing right now with your life, and who you're looking for to help.
The thing that we're focused on right now with Bedore Business Group is, one of the things that we've been able to really help companies with is sourcing top-end sales talent, mostly in the tech and software space here in Minneapolis. And a lot of that just comes from Nikolai Bedore, the founder of Bedore Business Group, being one of the guys in that industry at a very, very, very high level.
He's very connected,
but also knows
his shit.
Knows his shit for sure. But knows the difference between what it takes one to know one kind of mentality. And the two of us have been fortunate enough to work and be exposed to some different business models and different leaders to also be able to sniff out for candidates what's a good company. And that's one thing that's been challenging to grow revenues is that we're not interested in taking on just any search for a sales team.
Sure.
Because if there's not the right infrastructure, leadership, caliber of leadership, and growth trajectory of a company, we're not going to take on that search fee.
Well, employment is all about fit.
Yeah.
I mean, an employer, an employee, or whatever, an independent contract, however, the vision has to somewhat line up, or has to at least the philosophies, the core principles, however you want to word it, there has to be some mutual ground there.
Yeah.
And just because you're making $1 million, I mean, there's a lot of people not making very much that are extremely happy, you know what I mean, and vice versa, and it's all about finding that balance and that fit, which sounds like that's what you guys are experts at.
One of the things that we try to look at is, and generally when we talk to somebody, just because, I mean, let's face it, if somebody's good at sales, they're probably employed, and they're probably making decent money.
True.
Right? And so what I always try to look at is, I try to keep things simple. So the kind of money that you really want to make, the kind of lifestyle you really want to have, and then the kind of impact that you really want to have with your work. And generally when we meet a candidate, things are good. There's just one or maybe two of those that could be better, right? Sure. So if we can align that talent with a company that's able to offer them a better situation in one or two, maybe even all three of those categories, man, that's a huge win.
That's cool. So you're looking for more candidates or more companies to find those
Yes.
Everything, right? You're a connector.
Well, that's absolutely a connector, but that's one of the reasons that we want to do things differently is, what a lot of times happens in the world of recruiting, and jump on LinkedIn and type in recruiting, and you'll see 1 million people talking about the fact that recruiting's broken, right?
How's it broken?
Man, how much time you got? It's changed a lot in the last few years. For one thing, we're at historic lows. We're seeing the lowest unemployment rate that we have in 50 years. And I would venture to say that sales talent, here in our market in Minneapolis is probably even tighter than that, because we're continuing to see companies, like especially in the tech space, come to Minneapolis to hire sales teams because of the work ethic here. And
that's exciting.
It's way cheaper than San Francisco.
Sure.
So there are actually a litany of companies that are owned.
Cost of living, cost of value, it's all just,
owned on the coast, and they're building teams here locally, which is fun. We like to be a part of that. I love Minneapolis. But at the same time, you've got this influx of technology now with AI, job boards. It's very different than it was 5 years ago.
Virtual reality, the whole nine.
Well, and what happens is it's easier than ever to apply to a job. Mm-hmm. I was at a firm.
You click a button.
Not just one, and we had to stop using Career Builder because there's literally a button as a job candidate called Apply to 50, where you click it and it shoots out your resume as an application to 50 companies. And so as a recruiter on the other side of that, you're reaching out to these candidates.
These people
right?
who are you?
Yeah, you're like, excited to talk to you. I looked at your resume. What really struck you about the position or about the company? They're like, who is this? Yeah,
exactly.
Apply to 50, right?
And then all of a sudden you have to sell yourself instead of the opposite, right? It's like,
well, and so what happens is recruiting departments are inundated, right? Because they've got such an inflow, so they have to really play the numbers. Candidates don't hear back from recruiters because they're so swamped. So then they have to play the numbers.
That's the problem with the low unemployment rate is you get a lot of bad people in certain industries.
Well,
because everybody's making money, there's enough for it to be had that, like you say, well, if certain ones aren't doing their jobs and they're still making money, it's going to affect the whole industry. We got the same thing with insurance.
Well, the other thing is that the bottom line is you got people that it's easier than ever to be a passive candidate. You can apply to some stuff and just kind of see what happens. And then companies also have to post things that are kind of evergreen positions just so that they're building their candidate pool for when the opening does come up, they're not scrambling. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
so how do you cut through that?
And that's what we really try to do is cut through all that noise. Mm-hmm. Part of that is having conversations before we necessarily have a role with candidates. Our approach is to really build a bench of talent that, and that's one thing that clients love about working with us, is that when they have a role open and they come to us, a lot of times we have
you got the deep process.
Some candidates sitting.
You have the relationship. Yeah. They trust you.
And that's what it's really about, is the relationship.
What's one thing that you would want to leave everybody with about your business? What's one thing that they could either seek you out for, or what's your one big ask, or something you just want to leave the audience?
And how do they find you?
They can definitely find me on LinkedIn. It's Rich Strobel.
How do you spell your last name?
Yeah.
It's S as in Sam, T as in Tom, R-O, B as in boy, E, L as in Larry.
Beautiful.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to Dan real quick, his question.
The one big ask right now is, if you have a company where you've got a strong visionary leader and you're really missing, if you're a fan of traction, you're missing that integrator component, we should have a conversation.
Okay.
Because when I look back on my career and the companies that I've helped the most, I've always tended to align myself with visionaries and help them just kind of cut through the noise of whatever it is of their business that they're trying to do to hit their goals. Because the great thing about visionaries, they're idea guys.
Yep.
Right? You guys don't know anything about this.
But unfortunately, they're idea guys.
Exactly.
You get like 20 a day.
Yeah, the pace and frequency is blistering, right?
It is.
And so the ability to just kind of cut through that and stay focused on what's mission critical, what really aligns with our goals and what we're trying to get to. Those 10 ideas you just had, great. 4 of them suck. Let's be frank. 6 of them are interesting, but only 1 of them is going to move us towards the goal, right? And so that focus on what's the wildly important goal, what's the one thing, what's essential. It's so funny how these things come in and out of fashion, right? I mean, I was sitting in a conference, I think it was 13, 15 years ago, listening to Brian Tracy talk about, man, if you can find the one thing that have done really, really well, will make everything else easier, better, or just completely unnecessary to worry about, what would it be? Now we have these books like The One Thing and Essentialism, and then if you read 4 Disciplines of Execution, they talk about wildly important goals.
Focus on what you're good at.
Yeah, well, not necessarily that, but what is it that's going to move us towards the goal?
And oftentimes, I would argue, though, that is what you're good at. Because if you're trying to be the well-balanced, what is it?
I see what you're saying. Like play to your strengths.
Yeah, play to your strengths. Know what you're good at. Know what's going to work for you, and then focus your energy in those places.
And reach outside yourself, and sometimes you need to reach outside your organization to shore up the areas that you're not good at.
Yep, absolutely.
And so if that integrator piece is something that you're not good at.
Yeah, you can't forget about the stuff you're not good at. Like I'm good at going door to door. I could go door to door today and get us 15 leads a day. Would that solve our problems right now?
No, unfortunately, we are blessed to have an abundance of these problems.
And that's what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you so much, Rich.
Yeah, man.
Rich, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it all. Everybody have a great weekend. And,
again, one more time, Rich Strobel, Bedore Business Group, and R Factor. Find him on LinkedIn or just Google him.
Yeah.
You can find you there, right?
Google Rich Strobel.
No doubt.
Get
That's
excited.
what it's all about. Get excited.
I love it. Everybody have a great day. Take care. $1.
Oh, that was weak.
Cool.
That was cool. You want to hit the red button over there?
That'll work.